and welcome to the Advancing Healthcare Innovation Show. I'm Michael Stamatinos, your host, and if you're new to us, we are super excited to have you here because we bring exciting conversations with leaders who are painstakingly shaping the future of healthcare. And we're really passionate around healthcare innovation, adoption, and access. And if it's your first time tuning in, let me just tell you a little bit about what we're doing here. So we're focused on bringing stories of innovation within healthcare to life, and the aim is bringing real people that are in the weeds, making stuff happen, and giving them a platform to share their stories with the world. And we've got just an incredibly action-packed year with new content, amazing interviews planned. And if you haven't checked out any historical interviews, make sure you hit the subscribe button and go back and look at some of the other ones there. So please join me in welcoming our honored guest for today's episode. He's an innovative leader with over 25 years of leadership experience in the healthcare sector, Brian Litten. As CEO of Swift Medical, Brian's no stranger to pushing boundaries for the betterment of patient healthcare delivery and access. He's guided numerous teams from startups to public companies, serving in a wide range of C-suite positions. He's got extensive experience in Medicare Advantage, and Part D plans, all of which help kind of empower vulnerable populations with accessible healthcare. So Brian's aided a number of technology companies in their transformation and growth, and he's committed to addressing the intricate healthcare issues that have established him as an undeniable disruptor, innovator, problem solver within the industry. So a warm welcome, Brian. We're thrilled to have you on the show with us today.
Wow, great introduction, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Amazing. So you've had a number of different tours of duty in a wide range of sort of roles, as discussed earlier. And you kind of coming in being the new CEO in the seat of Swift Medical. Can you maybe share a little bit of your story, more than what I obviously described, because sometimes it comes better coming from the source, and then maybe kind of talk a little bit about Swift Medical from a higher perspective.
Yeah, Michael, I'd be happy to. I guess, if you do look over my background as you have, it can seem a little bit, disjointed, but I would think that you hit on a couple of points that are the common thread that run through it all. Really the one main common thread is around, my passion for leveraging technology to improve access to quality care for neglected and vulnerable populations. So whether it was, in my last company, helping to address a pervasive problem of polypharmacy through deployment of technologies that optimize the safety and efficacy of medication regimens, or whether it was helping clinicians understand the best chemotherapy regimen for a cancer patient at Path Forward, it's all been about, leveraging technology to provide better care to neglected populations. Here at Swift, we're doing exactly the same thing. So if you've heard of bedsores, have you? Bedsores, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, bedsores are pressure injuries. They come from patients who or individuals, not patients, who are less than fully ambulatory. They spend a lot of time sitting, a lot of time in bed. And you see a lot of that, particularly as populations age. And we have a rapidly aging population right now. So, these bed sores or pressure injuries are a pervasive issue. In fact, about 20% of our Medicare population, 50 plus million people in Medicare, will suffer from a pressure injury during the course of 1 year. If you've ever seen, a diabetic patient who's had an amputation, that's usually the result of circulatory issues that lead to pressure ulcers. Pressure ulcers are foot injuries. If not properly treated, do lead to amputation. And these are just two examples, pressure injuries and diabetic foot ulcers in the world of chronic wounds, which is, an area of both, chronic disease and aging populations that, our society is not, has not heretofore been appropriately focused on. And it's a $67 billion expense in our healthcare dollar. And, there are things that can be done about it. And Swift, we're really moving the needle in addressing these and providing clinicians with better paths to quality treatments and better and faster recovery times for patients that are suffering from chronic wounds.
Fascinating. So when it comes to what the existing state looks like, what has been the status quo? What has been accepted mostly by sort of the greater healthcare community when it comes to the treatment of these types of ulcers? I'd done a stint in the world of sort of orthotic and prosthetics, so I'd seen a number of different inserts that are done, or any kind of Charcot restraint orthotic walkers. But I'm sort of curious, what is also the status quo, and what are you trying to really shift? What are you trying to
Yeah.
move people towards?
No, it's a great question, Michael. And when I describe it, you'll be shocked and horrified at the same time. One of the um, most challenging parts of treating wounds is understanding whether a wound is getting better or whether it's getting worse. And because the wound changes so incrementally in amounts that are imperceptible to the human eye, it all comes down to measurement. And historically, most of the measurement for wound care has been done quite manually. Paper rulers and cotton swabs trying to measure the surface area and the depth of the wound. Um, and that is not only awkward and unsophisticated, and it's highly inaccurate, because even if you're looking at very small notches on a ruler, um, wounds change again in increments that are so much smaller than that and so much more nuanced than that. So this rudimentary way of trying to assess a wound's size, its area depth, through the use of a paper ruler, really, and why that's so important, because if you're not measuring that accurately, you don't know whether the wound's getting better or not. So you don't know whether the treatment that you've put in place for a patient is actually helping or harming. So
Mm,
one of the ways that Swift has really revolutionized the world of wound care is by leveraging aerospace software technology designed by the same scientists who designed the imaging technology on the Hubble telescope and the Mars rover, that looks at the surface of planets and craters, and applied that to the human skin, where wounds are like the craters, and
yes.
it's that same sophisticated way of imaging that allows a clinician to see very clearly through software that's downloaded to your personal device, to your smartphone or your tablet. Like, it turns your smartphone into a medical device. um, and it can allow doctors, nurses, other clinicians to see what otherwise would be imperceptible changes to a wound, and therefore understand the wound path progression to know whether a wound is in fact getting better or not.
Interesting. So give us a use case in terms of, you mentioned nurses and physicians. They're doing this either at bedside, or I would imagine, are they going to the home of the patient? And is there an instance where the patients are actually taking a photo themselves to update the clinical team? Talk a little bit about the actual application of it.
Yeah, great question. And you did touch upon, an aspect of our 2024 growth trajectory, because our company, Swift, is so deeply rooted in clinical science that, we don't rest on our laurels. We have a team of scientists and clinicians that are constantly working to evolve the technology, to improve it, to make it better for clinicians and for patients. So, right now it's used in all of the cases that you've talked about, except for one. It's used, in wound care centers. It's used in hospitals and outpatient settings. It's used in the home. Home care. It's used in skilled nursing facilities. And one of the really compelling things about it is there's such a shortage of, qualified nurses to provide care, particularly wound care nurses, that the software calibrates the images. So regardless of body position, time of day, lighting, all of the factors that might make a picture that you take look different from the picture that I take, are all calibrated so that there is a constant. And those images, regardless of those factors I enumerated, will be the same image, so they can be layered on top of each other to understand that wound path progression. Um, there's also, we have done at Swift over 8 years in business. We have over 20 million wound images with 40 million patient encounters, longitudinal patient records, de-identified, of course. We're not using any individual's personal information, but it allows us, with the world's largest wound care database, to be able to pull important insights, leveraging artificial intelligence to deliver to the point of care insights to that clinician as to the best treatment protocols for a patient. We're not telling a clinician what to do, but we're providing decision support for that clinician at the point of care to understand, based on millions and millions of other cases, what might be the best course for this particular patient with this particular wound. You asked a question about patients taking images themselves, and I don't know if you were looking at a crystal ball, but that's exactly what we are working on right now. We have a product roadmap that is rolling out new features such as smart tissue that will be available in the first half of 2024. Smart tissue identifies tissue type by leveraging artificial intelligence. So everything is driving toward the ways we can use the database that we've amassed to provide the best clinical insights to the point of care. So smart tissue is coming, but we also have a feature coming out called Patient Connect, which is exactly what you described. This would allow a patient in rural areas, or somebody who can't get to a physician's office or to a wound center regularly, to take an image themselves, or to have a family member or caregiver take an image and send it off through to a clinician. Patient Connect is another feature set that will be rolled out in 2024.
Super interesting. So from an access standpoint, imagine how powerful it can be as someone that doesn't have the capability of jumping in a car or getting an Uber towards a wound clinic if they're in a very, very sort of remote area. What type of intervention do you think can happen as a result of someone getting a picture, being able to sort of make an analysis over that picture? What, talk me through that. What happens then?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I think the clearest cut case, Michael, is when, an image is sent through Patient Connect to a clinician. They would be able, particularly if there's somebody who's seen the patient before and has an established relationship, they would be able to, let the patient know whether they need to come into the office or not. If it's being viewed for the first time by a new clinician, it might give them some insight as to whether urgent care is needed, or whether it's something that can wait
Mm.
until a routine scheduled appointment could be accommodated. So I think it's really the whole array of options, and it's something that is new for us. And as we roll it out and work with our 20,000 users a month, which number is growing, and who take care of 200,000 patients a month using our app, we'll learn from them. We're not dictating the path forward. We're providing tools for clinicians to determine how best to use, and to provide insights and guidance to us as to what they want to see next. How can we help them do their jobs better?
I'm curious around clinician adoption. Early on, I can only imagine people were like, no, I'm fine. I can use my ruler. But here's the thing, you get 10 clinicians, you might get 10 different measurements. So I can see how you can kind of overcome that. What was sort of what made the flywheel go by a lot faster? I mean, you mentioned 20,000 clinicians that are using this, you know, each and every day. That's not a small number. What do you have any insights to kind of share what sped up that level of adoption?
Um, the software Swift Skin and Wound is a complete game changer. Not only does it provide the insights that I mentioned before that were previously lost by trying to take use a paper ruler to take a measurement, but it also just helps the workflow so much. Rather than having to move a patient, to a particular angle to get a measurement with two hands while you're taking notes or typing into an EHR, using the app is as simple as pushing the camera button on your iPhone. So it's really, really easy to use and provides such profound insight that, uptake has been just very natural. The world of wound care, because these patients, as I mentioned at the outset, have been neglected, they're forgotten. This is an unknown issue for the most part. Although when you talk to people, they'll always seem to know someone who has suffered from a wound, but you don't think about it in the context of costs associated with cancers, heart disease, and but it's right up there. And so much money is being spent on chronic disease management, diabetes management, and wound care is really an extension of all of these things, and a very natural extension. So, I think as more attention is focused in the area, there'll be more people looking for solutions to help address this problem.
Absolutely. So where do you see additional levers that you can pull to just say 10x those number of users? What are you thinking through? And then where do you kind of see some of the blockers preventing that 10x from happening from a utilization standpoint?
Yeah, I think that as the technology becomes easier to use, as it becomes more intuitive, as we go through more the development of, new versions of the software, we're moving to a new delivery platform right now. Historically, we have built and supported the front end of our software on iOS,
Hmm.
iPhone, and on Android. We are moving to a device agnostic platform, which will obviously make it easier for us to focus on maintaining one tech stack, very, very sharply. And that's we're using Flutter for the techies who are interested in understanding that. And on the back end, we're moving to the gold standard of Smart on Fire for integrations, which also, to get to your point, allows us to segregate out different API data feeds. And I think that there's a really interesting opportunity. Me having come out of the payer space, I think that payers who are spending this, 67 billion Medicare alone, but Medicaid on top of that, maybe 150 billion dollars of costs a year, as they understand that those costs are real, that they exist, and there are things that you can do about them. Being able to provide clinical insights to the plans to help them incentivize quality, to drive to value-based care in wound care, and to provide insights from planning and medical necessity determinations for prior authorization. I mean, I think there's just a world of good to streamline the process between the providers and the payers around wound care. And, I believe that this new technology stack that we are rebuilding our IP on, which will be done by the end of the year, it will allow us at Swift to kind of sit in the middle of this wound care ecosystem, serving as the source of truth and facilitating a very efficient flow of data and information, all with the intention of driving the best quality care at the lowest cost for patients, for clinicians, and for those that pay for the care.
So in the current model that you guys are working through now, it sounds like then you're you're the facilitators of this care in the sense that you're providing the technology and then clinicians can take action on those insights and intervene in a timely manner. And you mentioned around sort of in a roundabout way, the interoperability or where is this data going back? Is it going back into the EMR? So there's lots and lots of integration, information's moving back and forth. There's no hiccups on that standpoint. Is sort of just a point of clarification.
Yeah, no, we have great integration partners. When the company went to market in 8 years ago. One of its first partners, and still one of its strongest and most important partners today, is the electronic health record point-click care, used in
Mm.
the primarily in the skilled nursing space. And we have a full integration with point-click care, and we look forward in the coming months and years to really developing that relationship in some exciting ways going forward. On the home health side, we are integrated with Home Care Home Base, and that's how a lot of the home health organizations receive Swift. So we do have, standalone organizations that are using Swift without an integration, but the integrations on the back end of our tech stack reboot, again, that's done December 21st, being on Smart on Fire, will allow for more seamless, more efficient, faster integrations with EHRs, ranging from the ones I mentioned to Epics and Cerners as well. We have a couple of users on Epic, and we think that hospital space, both post-acute and acute inpatient, are ripe for growth. So many wound care patients show up in the emergency room, and the emergency room doctors and nurses are not really equipped to deal with wound care. They're focused on triaging non-emergency cases and addressing heart attacks and gunshots.
Yes.
So if there's a way of helping them manage and triage wound care better, so that those patients who present at the ER get the best care possible from the most appropriate clinician, that would be another way through an integration we'd be able to help.
Super interesting. And you mentioned around payers, and you're sitting on this incredible asset of data and information,
Yeah.
and payers are very, very data oriented. Talk about how there's a difference in the setup of the conversation, how you approach a payer versus how you approach a provider group. What have been some of those key learnings? And I know you have a lot of expertise, in working with payers, but can you kind of maybe frame up how you've been positioning this? Not obviously sharing anything that you can't share publicly, but just to sort of
Yeah, no,
paint the picture.
I mean, I think, typically, and what I'm about to say is, for the most part, pretty logical too. Providers are primarily concerned with clinical quality, giving the best clinical services to patients. They're concerned about workflow. They're under a lot of pressure to see as many patients as possible during a day. So anything that makes that go more quickly, that's great. They're concerned about the risks of litigation. If they, in the case of wound care, if a wound develops when you're in the hospital, or arguably isn't treated appropriately. So Swift has all of the documentation to support providers in all of those areas. When you
Mhm.
move to the payer side, it's about having population health insights. It's about understanding, how wounds begin to appear across a population and what could be done to prevent them from appearing before they appear. So it's being able to provide that insight, and it's being able to leverage the 40 million patient encounters we have, and we've published in 21 peer-reviewed journals documenting the outcomes that we've drawn. So, the providers are interested and proud of those outcomes, but the payers get really excited about them because we're able to demonstrate, again, in peer-reviewed literature, that we have a direct impact on reducing hospitalizations, reducing lengths of stay, reducing preventable emergency room readmissions, and all of those things matter a lot, and they should matter a lot to payers.
Absolutely. So in an ideal world, if I waved a magic wand and you had your way, if Swift is working so well and these insights are happening, what does that actually impact the business in a negative way? Meaning there's not going to be as many patients that'll have wounds because they're being treated, through whether it be behavior modification, wellness education, things that sort of can prevent some of these types of. Listen, we know that I'm a realist also. I know that
Yeah.
probably won't happen.
No,
But
you know what?
you get where I'm
Nothing,
going
Michael.
there.
Nothing would make me happier to see the problem of wounds go away. My own father died from a wound-related infection. I would love to see this problem go away. If Swift can help put chronic wounds out of business, that would be awesome. But keep in mind one important thing. I mentioned earlier that the software is developed by aerospace software engineers for deep space exploration, for looking at the surface of planets. So on planets, they're craters, but they're crevices and they're rocks and they're other things. So if you think about the skin and the wounds being the craters, there are other things on the skin too. So the software that we use is called Swift Skin and Wound. If we
Mhm.
lop off that wound and it becomes about the skin, we have so much interest in our product that we haven't been able to even scratch the surface of relating to wounds from surgery, like our surgery scars
Yes.
getting better. Dermatology, is this mole getting bigger or smaller or changing in color? Is
Yeah.
it cancerous? Is it non-cancerous? So if the skin is the biggest organ of the body,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of opportunity for us to address other problems. And if wounds go away, that would be awesome.
So
We have
you
more work to do.
you hit that question out of the park because I was hoping you were going to go there, and you did. So and this wasn't pre-rehearsed at all, by the way, for those
Well,
that are listening. So how can how can our community continue to follow your work, continue to follow the work of Swift Medical? Maybe just kind of give just a kind of commercial shout out how we can just sort of stay in touch with some of the amazing work you guys are doing.
yeah, I mean, I encourage any of your viewers to connect with me on LinkedIn. I definitely, post news coming out about the, business. I don't overdo it, but when it's important, I put it out there. On our website, swiftmedical.com, you can sign up for newsletters and information. I think that no, I don't think. I know there are going to be a lot of very exciting developments at Swift over the course of the next 18 months. We have over the course since June of this past year made a sizable investment in our technology. We have an R&D team with a product pipeline coming out to keep us way ahead of the curve. We have new patent filings that are going in like weekly. So we are always pushing the envelope. So the next time we have the opportunity to talk, Michael, and I look forward to it, guarantee that there'll be something new and exciting.
Amazing. Amazing. So, and then just one last question, because we're a community of doers, right? Nothing innovation doesn't happen without execution. If there is one ask, one thing that you would like for, the community to do in terms of supporting the mission, the vision of Swift, what's the ask?
I think the ask would be, as we're talking, to help us obliterate the problem of wounds, is to become more aware of what a pervasive problem it is, and it's something that we just don't know about, we don't talk about. It's and that problem of wounds is going to become a bigger and bigger problem as the population ages, as more people suffer from chronic disease like diabetes. So the more we're aware of it, the more we talk about it, the more likely we will all be to do something about it.
Amazing. Out of sight, out of mind. So we'll keep it top of mind. So for those that have tuned in, if you found this content helpful for you, would you mind sharing it on social media, whether it's liking, commenting, resharing it with your network? We're grateful when we can take action. Having a group of innovators, of executors that are trying to move things forward, it just makes things all the better. So a rising tide raises all ships. Brian, it's been amazing to have you on. I appreciate you sharing all the insights. And yes, you're absolutely welcome to come back and share new things sometime down the road, and we welcome it.
Michael, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Look forward to our next conversation.